Hello interwebs, I hope you're all doing well, especially in light of recent events. And in that vein, before I get too far into this video, I'm going to put up a big forewarning and content warning that I'm going to be talking about some really horrific and hard stuff in this video, specifically surrounding the recent mass shooting here in Colorado Springs in the United States, as well as a lot of the rhetoric and fallout that has happened from that event, and personally my own feelings as a trans and queer person about that event that I am sure many of us in the queer community are feeling right now. And so if that's something that you cannot handle at the moment, and heaven help me, I myself can barely handle it at the moment, I totally understand if this is a video you need to step away from, and I will see you next time. Please take care of yourself, and I wish you all the best. With that being said, I need to talk about this event because otherwise it's going to consume my head and my heart, because it's just been deeply on my mind, especially for the reason that I am currently not in my normal surroundings. As many of you may have already noticed, I am not in my usual set, and that is because since it is Thanksgiving here in the United States, I have gone traveling to go visit my family, and I'm very lucky as a queer person to have family that accepts me and that I get to spend time around, even though they can certainly annoy the hell out of me, as they do many of us, that they are loving and very accepting. And I'll come back to why that's super important in this discussion in just a minute. But even more pertinently, where I had to travel to see my family was Colorado Springs. I'm not there right now, so if any of you are worried about my safety, I have since traveled from there. But last night and most of yesterday, I spent all day in Colorado Springs. And I drove by the site of the shooting, and I have to say, look, this wasn't my specific community. I'm not from Colorado Springs, but this was my community in the sense that this was the queer community that was attacked. And I can't tell you how much it hurts to see that, to be at a site of such violence and hatred being enacted in the name of that hate against my community and against people like me for being like me. It left me scared to just be in this area. And I know, like, you know, I'm not going out, I'm hanging out with family, staying in a hotel and everything. So, you know, I'm probably not in any danger really. But you just feel it, this sense of being unsafe, you know, even traveling as a trans person, anywhere in the United States, but particularly this area, I felt like, am I gonna be attacked, harassed, harmed? I certainly got looks as I was traveling, but luckily nothing bad happened. But just that air of feeling unsafe. I can't even imagine what it's like for the community here in Colorado Springs, the queer community in Colorado Springs. But I know all of us in the queer community are feeling, because this fear that we all feel right now is a direct result of the growing rhetoric against the trans and LGBTQ community in the United States right now. And I'll talk more about that in just a second, and my anger at that. But even more importantly, we all feel this pain in the queer community because this is our family. Like I said, I am lucky enough to be with family members right now who do accept me. But for many queer people, they don't have that. And we find our family and our love and our community with other queer people. So when one person attacks one of us, we all feel it because all of these people are our family. We are close in that way. And even me, who, you know, I am lucky enough to have a family that accepts me, they don't really understand me in a lot of ways. They know I'm a Trekkie and all that stuff. But, you know, whenever I talk about trans issues or things that affects me, they sort of have this glossy look over their eye. Even when I talk about the Colorado Springs shooting and my feelings on it, to them yesterday, they sort of got this, you know, glassy look in their eye. Not that they didn't care, they certainly cared, but it's more of an abstract thing for them. Or if it does feel close to home, it's in a way that, like, so many people feel unsafe in the United States because of the constantly rising gun violence in this country, which is certainly something, you know, all of us do feel, certainly. And it's not something to dismiss. But in this specific case, you know, this was something that was stoked. You know, for very specific reasons with the rising rhetoric against the LGBTQ community in the United States. And that's really what I wanted to talk about, because beyond my feelings of unsafeness and sadness and pain, there's an anger. And that anger grew even more last night when I was going online and seeing the responses to this event by certain public figures and people with platforms and right-wing figures who have helped stoke the very violence that caused this man to enact violence against the LGBTQ community. It absolutely terrifies and angers me that we see so many of the responses now to this shooting event have not been the typical thoughts and prayers that the wasted words of many politicians and especially Republicans and conservatives in power give us. No, the rhetoric has changed to being that queer people deserved this. You see so many now feel so open about the fact that they have vilified trans people and the LGBTQ community so much that they can just openly say, like, yeah, blame us for our own murders. And this goes from people in extreme heights of power to the lowest dregs of people. I'm going to forewarn you because I need to show you this just because I need you to feel my anger, but please skip ahead if this is something that you can't handle right now, even amidst this really hard topic. You see people like Matt Walsh, who I've spoken about in other videos, blaming the victims for being murdered.
According to the left, the drag queen child combination has become dangerous. They say it's a lightning rod for violent backlash, right? That's what they say. And it's greatly exaggerated, of course. Mostly it's invented out of whole cloth, actually. But even by their version of events, if it's causing this much chaos and violence, why do you insist on continuing to do it? If according to you, it's like putting people's lives at risk, if the effort to have men cross-dress in front of children is putting people's lives at risk, why are you still doing it? Is it that important to you?
You see people like The Quartering and Steven Crowder and Tim Pool using this same sort of rhetoric. It's like, oh, well, they were grooming children, so what do you think is supposed to be done in response to that? Saying that this disgusting violence used against the trans community and the LGBT community was justified in any way, shape, or form. And that's because they have created this rhetoric and mindset and lies around our community, saying that trying to be our best selves, trying to live our lives the way that we choose to is somehow inherently sexual, dehumanized, grooming children. When all we're trying to do is trying to fight for our own lives, our own bodily autonomy, our right to be happy, and fight for others in our community to do the same. To fight for our ability to just be happy. And these people say all of this without any understanding about our community and how we live our lives. God, to think that we have the energy to try to be grooming the children and trying to manipulate society with our trans agenda. I'm barely able to try and get anything else done besides doing like shit. Or like what these clubs and bars actually are, which is just us trying to find community, trying to have a little bit of fun. And they blame like, oh, drag shows are sexualizing the children. I was at a gay bar literally earlier this week with some friends. And it terrifies me to know that just spending a night with my friends hanging out could be interrupted with such violence. It makes me scared to go out. And yet, I know that to feel that fear is what many of these people stoking these rhetorics want. For us to feel so scared that we don't want to go out in public anymore. All the fear that I was describing earlier is exactly what they want. They want to scare us into not being publicly visible. And use plausible deniability and scapegoating in order to try to hide the fact that that's what they want. Us to feel like we aren't allowed to be in public, allowed to be anywhere, allowed to be ourselves. It's disgusting and horrifying, and it shows a complete lack of understanding of how queer people live our lives. When I go out to a queer bar, I'm just a weird dork just trying to have a few drinks and rant about, Star Trek novels with my friends. That's what I do. And you see it all the way up to people who have some of the biggest platforms right now. I saw a clip that absolutely angered me and horrified me from Tucker Carlson. And not that I expected anything different from Tucker Carlson, but quite literally the clip was someone coming onto his program and saying, well, this type of violence isn't going to stop until they stop grooming children.
Right. I mean, it shouldn't have to be said, but what is anti-LGBTQ that these people need to understand, and what is putting our community in great danger is, claiming that all of us support this and just associating all of us with this. Saying that groomer is an anti-LGBTQ slur, that is doing irreparable damage to us as a whole, and is putting a really large target on our backs. And unfortunately, the tragedy that happened in Colorado Springs the other night, it was expected and predictable. We all, within Gays Against Groomers, saw this coming from a mile away. Yeah. And sadly, I don't think it's going to stop until we end this evil agenda that is attacking children.
And by grooming children, they mean giving trans affirmative care to children so that we can help them live their best lives, so they don't die because they aren't given the affirming care that they need to be able to live their lives free from mental health issues, from suicidal thoughts, and much more. This care is saving lives. So by saying this type of violence isn't going to stop until you stop grooming children, and you mean that, what you're saying is that either way you are calling for our deaths. You are calling for our deaths in a slow way by just denying us the basic care for our ability to live our lives, or you're going to stoke up violence against us and vilify us so much that you're going to cause people to feel like they have no other option but to enact violence against the trans community. And I am not trying to remove blame from this shooter who enacted this horrific violence in the name of these rhetorics. But this violence was stoked and caused by people constantly and continually ramping up their rhetoric against the trans community and the LGBTQ community specifically, calling us groomers, calling us, sexualized fetishists and deviants and people just trying out here to destroy society. Once you have built up rhetoric to that level, what other choice do people feel like they have than to enact violence? It's this stochastic terrorism that folks like Matt Walsh and others continually use. And they will try to wash their hands of it, saying like, well, we didn't call for this, but you have seen these people and again stoke this violence. We saw it with Matt Walsh calling for the harassment of people at Boston Children's Hospital, leading to a bomb threat against Boston Children's Hospital. You can no longer, once something like that happens, you can no longer wash your hands and deny, like, I didn't know that could possibly happen, because now you know, and yet you continue to do it. So what does that tell us what your intention is? Not that we didn't know beforehand, but you cannot wash your hands of us, even they will try every single possible way to deny responsibility in these events. I spoke about this in my Matt Walsh video that I did about What is a Woman. That film and a lot of Matt Walsh's rhetoric and a lot of right-wing rhetoric against trans people nowadays is quite literally calling for violence against trans people in the name of trying to fill their wallets, in the name of trying to hold on to their power and pitting people against each other. It's gross and disgusting, and it pisses me off so much. And I know we're all feeling it right now. It's why I want to make this video, because if I don't share this anger and pain and grief, it will consume me, and I need it to be heard. And I'm upset that I have to do this, especially during this week when I'm supposed to be seeing my family. I haven't seen some of my family members in years. But I can't focus on that fully and feel like I'm being with them fully, because I am feeling the pain of my community right now. And I am lucky that I am insulated and protected from it in many different ways by my privilege in the economy where I live in Seattle and things like that. But I still feel it. And I can't imagine it for people who live in much more vulnerable situations, be it location or just people that they have to live with, their families who live in this rhetoric all the time. This is what this leads to. And like I said before, it is getting worse because they feel no sense of shame about it anymore. It's no longer thoughts and prayers. It's these people deserved it. And what frustrates me most is I can't be as angry as I want to be on this platform, on YouTube, because you know that if I did the same thing that they said about us if I sexualized them in any way. And we saw it with my recent YouTube controversy about the Matt Walsh video. I would be the one getting a community violation, even though they do it all the time. These people are allowed these platforms to say these all the time. One of the most publicly viewed Fox News programs on television. Matt Walsh, with over almost 2 million subscribers on this platform, is allowed to keep saying this bullshit over and over and over again. So what I will say is this. I wish upon these people everything that they wish upon the queer community. And if that statement, by the way, gets me hit with a community violation, then you are tacitly admitting what this rhetoric is for. If that rhetoric of me saying I wish upon them what they wish upon us is tantamount to violating, like calling for violence or anything like that, which I'm not saying it is, just to be clear. But if that is a community violation to say that, then you have tacitly admitted that that is what their rhetoric is about calling for violence against us. Because that's, I can't even say that. I'm scared to say that because then it would possibly get me a community strike or whatever. Pisses me off that I have to constantly couch my anger and pain. I'm not allowed to express it. I'm not allowed to feel it without... I'm sorry. I have notes that I wanted to get through in this video, but this video just hurts. And I just needed to make it so I could get it off my chest so that I could go and be with my family for Thanksgiving and not have this circling in my brain. And I hope it was cathartic for all of you because it was helpful to me to say all of this. I'm going to be honest, it's been very hard as a creator these past few months. I've been having a lot of anxiety and panic attacks because it's like, why? I want to work to find joy, but I also want to fight back. And I know finding joy is fighting back in a lot of cases. And I still will, and I have videos that I'm planning on doing that will be fun. And I have a video coming out about Star Wars Andor in a few weeks. Be on the lookout for that. I'm very excited about it, but it's very hard to have the energy to do this stuff because I constantly have to feel this. And I don't want to become numb to it. But it's hard. I wish I could be more eloquent. Normally I am, but I'm tired. I'll end there. At the end of the day, remember this, please. And I'll try and end in a positive here, even though I'm expressing pain and anger. Remember that we do always have each other. We do have our families. Not necessarily always our biological family, but our family that we create together. Our queer community, our communities of friends and family around us. There is always a way out through love and caring and kindness. And yes, that requires pushing back against horrible people saying horrid things and stoking horrid violence. But our guiding star is always each other, and our love and caring for each other and our community with each other. Never lose sight of that. Never lose sight of each other. I say that to remind myself as much as all of you. Because sometimes I forget that we do have each other. And actually, one last thing that I think is necessary to end this video on, and that is to give a moment to remember the 5 victims from our community who we have lost, and without we are diminished. And they are Daniel Ashton, Kelly Loving, Ashley Paw, Derek Rump, Raymond Green Vance. We remember you, and what is remembered never dies. All right, I love you all. Take care of yourselves. If you are in the United States and you celebrate Thanksgiving, I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Be safe. Live long and prosper, my friends.